Hey everyone, Mike today with some thoughts here on Yakuza Like a Dragon. As with all my other Yakuza videos, this is going to be pretty spoiler free. However, this time around I did mix things up here a little bit by actually firing up an older save file that I made. So this is about 9 hours in. We'll just get a little bit of a taste of a main story mission at the end of this video, but again, it should be mostly spoiler free because these are, after all, story driven games. The story is why you want to play a Yakuza game first and foremost, and despite carrying a different name, this could have easily been called Yakuza 7, which is confusingly technically the 8th game in the franchise. For those of you who don't know, Yakuza 0 is a thing, so 0 to 7 is technically 8 games. But the reason they went with a different name for this one is for a couple reasons. I don't know why I did that. I'm not going to replay the save, but hey, I got that taxi unlocked, so I can fast travel there next time. But yeah, they changed things up, right? While this is still a continuation of what happened in all the previous games, for reference, if this is your first time, listening to one of these videos or first time seeing this game, the Yakuza franchise games, with the exception of Zero being a prequel, all happen, chronologically, 1 or 2 years from each other. So by this game, this continues, 1 or 2 years after the events of the previous Yakuza 6. Something about around there. I don't know the exact timestamps or I know all that, but gives you an idea. And so, yes, there are characters from the previous games who you still meet in this one, but this is a new area, new main lead character, again for reasons relating to previous games. I'm not going to get into why that's the case. But yeah, with a new character they brought in new gameplay, and they went from a kind of a brawler style combat to an RPG style combat, which is an interesting change. So here we're firing off a side mission here to give you an idea of kind of what to expect on some of the side stuff. I went from playing a lot of the side missions in the early Yakuza games to not much, and I went back to like PS3 era games that haven't been remastered to, at least with this one, I did almost all the side missions. So the interesting thing is, by going to this sort of RPG gameplay, you're able to have a pretty steady party of characters that will follow you around. So you're kind of like recruiting people in a way, and they tie that in with the story, which is kind of neat. On top of that, there's more incentive to do side missions, because side missions can potentially get you other characters that you could kind of use in a different way in combat. So yeah, there's a lot of neat ideas. Why it is an RPG, it's not a particularly difficult or challenging one, the same way the Brawler didn't used to be a particularly difficult or challenging game. There's some depth there. You could take advantage of it and make the game real easy for yourself if you got really good at all the combat and the combos and stuff. Similarly, if you get deep into the RPG elements here, you could probably make the game pretty easy for yourself. But the very minimum, if you don't get into it too deep, you'll still do fine. I touched most of the aspects that they did in this, and I could see ways I could have made the game a bit easier for myself, but at the same time, because I did almost all the side content, the game wasn't super difficult either, because I leveled up quite a bit. So this is kind of a newer mechanic as well, and this is kind of what I'm seeing, okay, they did this change to RPG, but they did more than that. You know, there's this kind of bonding experience that you can have. So you can level up bonds with characters, and there's also stats that your main character has, which we'll take a quick peek at as well, which can open different dialogue options or just open up doors that are not available normally. And so there's a lot of neat stuff around the edges that has potential for greater implications in future games, right? This is kind of their first step into this is their side step into RPG. They've set some baseline stuff. They've had some neat ideas kind of working around. The next game might be the one where they take a... Yeah, let's go with the daddy long legs. I don't know. Just a random answer, but hey. But yeah, it's a little bit of a sidestep in some sense. A little sidestep, a little half step forward at the same time. But with the things they do here, they've kind of set a baseline to potentially expand deeper into that in future games. So yes, while the RPG element changes combat, it also changes standard story and gameplay, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know, story-wise, it's hard to talk too much about it. I don't want to get into any spoiler stuff. I mentioned earlier there's some familiar faces that'll show up. You know, even real side characters show up too, which is nice. After all, it is the same world. They've continued that on for I don't know how many games. Well, basically this is the 8th game, right? And so that's neat to see. I appreciate that. The game itself is very long. 42 hours, 33 minutes is my final time. There's a lot of stuff in this game. There's a lot of content. If you've played previous Yakuza games, you know that some of them have like 4 acts, for instance, with a couple chapters in each act. They could have almost done that to this with just one character, because there's like 4 major storyline arcs that happen throughout the story for this game. So it feels like a lot, and it is a lot, right? It's a long game. You go through a lot of content. You go through a lot of wild swings and stuff. But I'll start buttoning through here. This is kind of what happened after 20-30 hours. I'd read the subtitles and I'd start buttoning through it quickly because, yeah, I hit a point where this game was getting kind of long. Closer to 30 hours, I'd say. That's where I decided that, you know, I like what they're doing, I appreciate it, but at the same time, like, hey, I got stuff to do, you know. And so, yeah, overall, I quite liked it. I will mention that there is actually English voiceover in this game. I listened to it for half an hour to an hour, and then I switched to Japanese. Not to say it's bad voice acting. It's like no voice acting kind of thing, right? Like it's very clean and clear translation voiceover kind of stuff that they got. It doesn't quite fit the game. Again, it's not bad, it doesn't fit. And so, you know, nothing against people who voiced the English stuff. This comes down to whoever... There's a lot of layers to it, right? Whoever decided that that was the direction to go for the voice stuff is... Maybe they didn't play the Japanese one. Maybe they just listened to the side stuff. I don't know. If you listen to the stuff they have with main characters and whatnot, like, there's a lot of emotion and it's a lot more stuff going on than what the English VO has. So, of course, I switched it to Japanese, and that's how all the other games have been, right? So, nothing new. Hey, it turns out we're being set up. So, we'll go through this battle. I don't really have a ton else to add. Well, I'll go through the cutscene afterwards. I know we've hit the 10-minute mark already. I intend to try and keep this short, but I also don't want to go... I don't want to cut off a little tiny bit of the story just to kind of give you an idea. So yeah, you'll see I'm making fairly extensive use here of some of the special / magic abilities. They do a lot of damage, and so taking out some strong guys early on is one of multiple strategies you could go with. You could also go down the route of trying to do a lot of AoE stuff, which can be useful as well. It depends on your perspective, right? I should be able to take out one of these guys with a shot. Oh no, not even. Anyways, we'll take that guy out. They do mix up the combat. If you time like a B press or a circle press if you're on a PlayStation controller, when an attack lands, as in an enemy is attacking you, I can get a perfect block, which does reduce some of the incoming damage. So, you know, it's not just super passive RPG, there's a little bit more to it there. It's a little tough to time him because I've not fought these guys in a long time, so I've had to time different stuff for the last several hours. But you get used to it. It becomes pretty natural. Anyways, we're gonna have to fight our way up. That's kind of the gist of the story here. So as the cutscene continues on, oh right, there's a secondary cutscene. Is there not? Okay, there's an item here. Get the other cutscene out of the way. So yeah, to kind of wrap this up, this is a phenomenal game, without a doubt. What's interesting about Like a Dragon is, if you want to get into the Yakuza games, I'd say start with Zero or Like a Dragon. They're both kind of similar games you could start with. Like a Dragon is kind of standalone, right? You'll miss some neat touches with some of the recurring characters, but at the same time, if you really like this game and then you go back and play the other ones, then you'll get some of those moments, I suppose. Having said that, this is also an RPG, so you know, it doesn't have the same brawler stuff that the previous games have all been so far. So keep that in mind if you do start with this game. And I guess the last thing to say is these are available on Game Pass. Yakuza 0 through Like a Dragon. All 8 games are on Game Pass. Yes, you'd think someone's in the box. But then, nope. No one's in the box. But actually, someone is in the box. Spoiler alert. And this kind of gives you an idea of what some of the, I'd say kind of middle tier cutscenes, in-game cutscene things are. This gives you a bit of an idea of what they do. And then we're back to the lower tier stuff, which isn't fully voiced. Which there's a bit of this, right? And you can button through it. If you can read the voice over text quickly. I can read that instantly. It's not a big problem, so you can bun through some of this stuff pretty quickly. So yeah, I think the thing I'll leave you guys with is I'm interested in seeing what they do in the future with this. They've got a nice base set up. I don't want to do the battle through the door, so they've got a nice base set up with the switch to RPG stuff. You know, you've got a whole cast of characters, which being an earlier save I don't have now, but there are more people later on. They introduced more mechanics, there's more gear and equipment and stuff and upgrades and all sorts of different things you can play around with that we'll see. We'll see what they do for the next game, but at least for now, I'll leave you guys with this, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, hope you guys enjoyed this one.